I realized I have not done an update video on how I am becoming a modern content creator in quite some time. And so this idea of being a modern content creator is the kind of slogan and premise behind this channel. Obviously, the PolyTools is about tools and what kind of tools can you use as a creator. And I even started really making that the focus of the website. And I haven't actually made a whole lot of videos when it comes to software tools on the overall YouTube channel, but we'll get to more software-based tools here in a little while, as in a few months, I think, because I'm more focused on hardware right now. And I have mentioned that in a video here as of late, but I just wanted to kind of give you a take or a taste, of what I am planning on right now. What am I working on right now? And now that I'm done with that content blitz, what is my schedule kind of looking like at this point? So I used to believe in being super consistent and okay, this newsletter goes out on this day, this newsletter goes out on that day, this YouTube channel posts a video on this day, that same YouTube channel will post the interview video on a different day, but consistently on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something like that. At this point, I can't be arsed to be worrying about the days that I'm posting, especially since in pretty much all cases besides audio, I still feel kind of behind and I'm trying to catch up. And so for example, I'm really trying to get around to doing a review of the Pulsar unit, but then there's also a bunch of other videos I want to do on that unit as well. It comes with, I think, Ubuntu, and so I'm going to let it run on Ubuntu, and I'm going to test it out and do what I can with it. Then I'm going to put Windows on it and see what happens. And then I'm going to put Zorin on it and see what happens, maybe even Bazzite. And so that's 4 different operating systems I have to install and stuff like that. But I really wanted to experiment. And I also have this little device that I talked about recently, the Home Assistant thing. I think I actually might have posted it on the PolyInnovator channel. Can't remember, maybe both. But this little device is really interesting because it allows you to have your own local voice assistant. So combine that with a computer that can handle some of the low parameter LLM models, let alone just Home Assistant app. And you can have a really interesting combination there. Then I'm also thinking okay, with Obsidian and then Zorin, having any kind of Linux gives you more access to the kernel and just things you want to change. Having Obsidian allows you to have everything local, has a interactive aspect to the AI, which a lot of other, if you just wanted to have access to the file system, it doesn't work. Basically, I just want the AI to be able to access the file system, and I think Obsidian is the best way to go about that. And so I have some really cool ideas about that knowledge management aspect, which will be kind of the plan for the PolyInnovator channel, but there's plenty of videos in that process that I'd make for this channel. And because these are tools that you would use as a creator. Maybe not Bazzite, that's more gaming, but maybe I could put that on the gaming channel, for example. And so what I'm telling you here is, I'm taking this one idea, this one project of going over videos for this computer, and yet I'm making content for 3 different channels. And I think that that's a really interesting crossover. So one thing I've also talked about in the past is that if I have an interview, then we make a short recording, or maybe there's a particular clip in there, 8-minute clip, and it's more aligned with the niche of the other channel that I have, then I could take that clip and post it there and link to the video from my other channel, interlinking these channels. And that kind of SEO mindset is very common in blogging, but it's not very common in video SEO, let alone just video channels. And then when it comes to the blogs, there's a lot going on there. And this is something that I wish I had more people to tell me their opinions on, so I can get more feedback and soundboard. So if you're watching this, please leave a comment on what you think about this. So I have been consolidating my efforts. I dismantled my pin site, which is a tool that people use. It's basically like a link tree, but you can also host courses and coaching on there. However, I found it to be kind of broken, and I also had been marked as spam because of that tool. Not because I actually did anything wrong, but that domain had kind of marked as spam, and that impacted my email. That's what my email provider had told me. And so after having all these issues with Pinsite, I left that tool. And so I still had my courses on there, my Notion template, but the Notion template's out of date. I need to remake it anyways. And so I need to go around and remake these templates, but also need to provide a place for people to actually access those courses and those templates. So I built up my Ko-Fi for that. And then I also went on my website and moved the courses over to there. I'm going to have to figure out what to do with the video hosting aspect of the courses, but otherwise, I can use Wistia or unlisted YouTube videos. It's not a big deal, but that can go on there. So I'm really making the Poly Pro membership a little bit more useful on there. And then I actually moved the PolyInnovator gaming website over to the home site again, because that's where it was before, and I just didn't feel like it was doing the right thing on Paragraph. .xyz. So I always try to make sure I mention the tools in this channel because you might be curious what I'm talking about. And so I left Paragraph, and I'm glad I did because Paragraph is not a robust tool. It's mainly just a pure newsletter tool. And it used to be kind of a little bit like website building, which is why I joined it in the first place. But after they kind of made some UI updates, it really kind of neutered the website component. However, PolyTools, this is why I was kind of alluding to it before. This is why I wanted feedback, because I am wasting too much mental power as of late trying to, let me mute this real quick. I'm wasting too much mental power on trying to decide whether or not I want to consolidate the PolyTools PolyTools website on the PolyInnovator website. PolyTools, PolyInnovator, people get confused, and if I have that PolyTools underneath there, they'll understand why it's called that. I call it the Polymath Toolkit, which makes sense. That way it helps link two brands. And the complexity of a tools website would be kind of the reason why I made it as a separate thing. I just kind of felt like having a tools page on my site just wasn't going to help. And the recommendations feature is still in beta in Ghost CMS. However, it's also pretty limited too. And so even though I could probably theoretically do like a ton of tools with that feature, and my website actually shows the recommendations pretty well, I find that like I don't think that's a good idea. And so I'm trying to think about, okay, do I just make a page for every category and then just list them out in links? But then there's kind of a prioritization aspect to it unintentionally. There's no grid view. And so it's one of those things where the CMS aspect of having it on a separate website is key. But I don't like the newsletter being on the PolyTools website. I moved it there so that it could get SEO and grow on its own. But I'm not writing on there, and it does complicate things when it comes to the CMS because all the blog posts and all the tools act like the same posts. I don't know if I've ever really shared that, but that's how it works. And essentially, I just have one tag for the newsletter, so can't really have any special tags to differentiate different topics for the newsletter, for one. But then again, that's probably what it would be like on the PolyInnovator website too. But if there was any kind of overlap, like technology and AI, or let's say dating or polymathy or whatever, I could link those at least. But I can't really do the category tag on there because then that blog post would show up in the search results for that category, which would be fine if I could have a visual way of referencing like this is just a blog post, not a tool. And it's all chronological too, which kind of is annoying because then like the newest tools get popped up first. And I don't know how to really change that per se when it comes to the presentation on the site. So that's my thing. I'm not super happy with Ghost as the host for the PolyTools site. It was the best when it comes to just the visuals and the simplicity on my end because I had to take it from Airtable. Now NoCodeDB is my main tool I use for it, but I basically had to take a database and turn it into a site. And yet there's tons of tools to do it for Airtable or Notion and even I think NoCode now, but they sucked. And I tried all of them and it just didn't work. And so I was like, okay, this is not propagating very well. But now I have to copy all these tools over to the website by hand. And it's like 5 or 6, 7 different steps. And the images are really tedious. And the links are really tedious because it put the links in 2 different places, one in the meta description. It's a lot of work, which is why I haven't updated the PolyTools site nearly as much as I should. And I had some ideas for posts that I wanted to make, but those posts are mainly just collections of these different tools, like, hey, here's the best tools for this category kind of thing. And I think those are definitely necessary, but it's not the creative aspect of like, hey, here's why I like this certain tool, or here's what I think about content repurposing in the meta right now. Those are the kind of posts I like to make. And I think those are the most useful because there's already tons of websites giving you top 10 lists. I don't think they're very good lists, and so I can make better lists. But I don't think the lists are really what people are going to draw people in. Those are just going to be helpful for people trying to find a tool in that category. That's why I wanted to make it. So I got to figure out how I want to pursue that PolyTools. Do I just, eat it and do both? But it's also 2 different hosting plans too. And I'm thinking about moving my main website over to a new host. And then I would want to do the second site too, but I'm also kind of thinking, do I just kind of merge them and find some way to showcase those tools? So let me know if you have any ideas on that. I'm trying to think about like some kind of subdomain situation, especially since like my site has a interesting navigation and title bar that if I could just embed the PolyTools site within that. That would be really cool. And then I could just have everything on the PolyInnovator domain, just polyinnovator.space/tools or something like that. And that would be really interesting. But all right, I'm going to stop talking now. I have been working on videos left and right. I'm sure you've seen tons come out on this channel in particular, but even on the PolyInnovator channel and PolyInnovator gaming channel, I've been posting, and I've been doing a ton of blog posts, especially since when I moved my gaming newsletter over, I decided to post a few of them like right away, but most of them were scheduled out ahead of time. That way I can kind of get some more posts scheduled out, but also I could remake them a little bit, and I think that helped.